Well, hey everybody, welcome back to our Trading ThinkScript class. My name is Mike Fairborn. It is great to be back with you all today. Hey, I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper into the VWAP, the volume weighted average price concept, and what we can do with ThinkScript specifically in that regard, and tying it in, actually building it up to a level in terms of a scan that we can utilize on a daily chart. I had a number of feedback requests using a VWAP concept on a daily chart as opposed to a short-term chart, which we did talk about last week, which is what we're looking at on a VWAP specifically. But with the anchored VWAP, we can pull that out and have that data calculate over a period of time on a daily chart. And I wanted to look at specific sort of unique core breakouts within that AVWAP move. So a new strategy to develop there where we're really showing strength coming up above there, but not until it's consolidated a little bit around there, held down for a period of time, and then breaking up. Something that we can accomplish here with a ThinkScript scan. So looking forward to that with you all. And hello to each of you. We've got Jenny Michelle to get nerdy. That's right. And I guess that makes me a nerd. Perfect. Exactly. So good to have you here. Yeah, we do get a little bit because of the code, but this is a simple code today because we're just pulling it from the right from the Thinkorswim platform itself. But there we have it. All right. That gets us going. Absolutely. We've got Rocky. Hello to you, Rocky. We've got another one in there, but it's good to have you here. The script keep. Yeah. Hello to you, XS, as well as some other letters in there. Welcome. We've got Robert, Life of the Fast Lane. Will, how are you doing, Will? As well as Alfred, BJ. Great to have you all back, as well as Michael. Hey, I'm joined in the chat as well by a good friend, colleague of mine, Mr. Cameron May. Appreciate Cam being here to help out. I did offer to help on his chat coming up. I guess it's tomorrow. So we're doing a little bit of flip-flop here. Appreciate it, Cam, very much. So any questions, comments you have, throw those in the chat for us. Be sure to follow us on X, Cameron May CS, Mike Fairborn CS. Love to have you join there. All right, well, let's turn the time over to some disclosures quickly so we can get on into our core presentation here. All right, information here is for general information purposes only and should not be considered an individualized recommendation or personalized investment advice. Uh, Backtesting results that we do look at here are presented are hypothetical, and there's no guarantee that the same strategy implemented today would produce similar results. Investing involves risk, including for some products more than the initial investment. Now, past performance of any security strategy does not guarantee future results or success. A quick look at the futures there, futures disclosures, because we will reference those, particularly as it does set up, with the market, as we take a look at the market and we break that down a little bit. But I wanted to state that futures and futures options trading does involve risk, obviously, and substantial risk at that, not suitable for all investors. We just look at the charts here. So I wanted to throw that out to you just so you could check that out. But that is for really the charts only. All right. Well, in addition, well, there is no addition. That's it. All right, let's do this. Let's just pull up our platform here and let's talk about this concept. We've got some cool things to discuss today, but I did want to take a look at the markets because it is so helpful in terms of getting us positioned for what we might be seeing in terms of ThinkScript itself. What we can use with ThinkScript, bullish, bearish, whatnot. And I'm just still thinking about the nerdy comment. Where are my glasses? Maybe I should put some glasses on. Maybe put a little bit of a little pen protector here in my pocket as we get going for this class, but it does seem to work out pretty well that way. All right. Potential triangle, maybe. Let's just push this on down. Look at our our axis over here. I could just drag and drop that real nice. I've still got this planted in place, the projected move. And what are we doing right now? Well, it is interesting. Well, currently we happen to be down in the markets, and that's, obvious right here. We pulled back. You can see that red candle here. In fact, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, maybe give us something like a 6-month chart. Let's cut that range in half as soon as it decides to do that. Not yet. There we go. Okay, okay, so that's fine. Actually, one more. I'll do one more. There we go. All right, as we look at this, strong move consolidation, but what have we seen right here? Are there any indications that we still might be wanting to look at bullish type ThinkScripts? Very well could be, because we are holding on that upper channel line. Now that's important because that represents the breakout of the triangle and we're still holding it. And even by the way, all else equal, for a lot of technical traders, if you see a move that comes up here, breaks above a high range and just sits there, folks, they're saying a lot of times that's a positive because we have retaken that resistance. Interesting discussion because that we're going to tap into retaking resistance here today in the form of the volume weighted average price, but really diving in deep into that. But here you go. You're breaking above, and look what you're doing here. You're just dot, 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 dot. You're holding it, aren't you? You're holding those prior highs. And so now that resistance, alternatively, you get above it, it can become a S, support, short for support level as well. You can find support at that point. It's interesting because you're holding that level very, very nicely, aren't you? Waiting for the possibility of a bounce. The beauty of the price pattern is it does give you an interesting initial projection, and we're going to build on that today because we are seeing some stocks in the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100 as well, that are beginning to move higher and maybe can extend to a projected level on the price pattern. It is a projected level. It's not a guaranteed level, but that's why some traders do like these patterns. And here you go. So the NASDAQ falling even more, down about 500 right now, but resting kind of at the bottom. Well, we don't know if it'll rest there. It's sitting on the bottom of the channel, and we'll see what happens here. Another term for this triangle, does anybody know what the other term is? There are a few terms for the triangle. I've heard pennant before. The old, gosh, 1930s version, 1940s version, where there were some interesting books that came out at that time frame, they would just refer to this as a wedge. And within that wedge, you are getting that tighter, tighter, and tighter consolidation range, which you can see here. And as we get tighter and tighter within that range, a lot of times you can't break out, whether it's a wedge, triangle, pennant, consolidation, whatever it is. A lot of times when you consolidate after a big move, which is what happens, you can break out. We're going to dive in deeper, though, into this concept as we today, folks, are going to talk about uh, some stocks that are, let's just pull up any stock. This is just had one come to mind here and it's still pulling back in terms of Cisco here. This is not going to be a great example with our VWAP, but I can still explain the volume weighted average price to you. Let's throw it on right now. Let's just do a quick review of this. I think many of you already are familiar with this. There has been a number of discussions on it. Quick note over here. Let's just pull this up and see if we get it to load. Oh, it does the funny thing again, and it kind of goes off to the side. Um, Basically, the VWAP line, I'll put it on first, then we can take a look at it. So here is your VWAP line on the chart. Now, this has been known. It's calculated. You can see this on a 5-minute chart. In fact, there's our VWAP line on a 5-minute right now. We have included this in prior ThinkScript discussions. Now, the VWAP line shows the average price paid for all the shares trading since the calculation began, with larger volume trades having a greater influence on the average. And what is the average? Well, the average is the line. Remember, when we're talking about the VWAP exclusively, which we're going to kind of graduate above that today because there were a lot of discussions on using the daily, and there are some cool ways to expand on that too. But the VWAP is calculated during the day. It resets the next morning, and that's why we talked about using this on also a 30-minute chart, but intraday nonetheless. 5-minute, folks, 30-minute. We looked at both of these, and we also said, how does this play into the daily chart? Today, we're going to say, well, let's add up all that volume to a given beginning point in time. Let's go ahead and just kill this one right now. We'll take it off. And what we're going to use now is the AVWAP, the anchored VWAP. So it anchors at a particular price. Now over here, let's pull it up and I'm going to show you a good quick way to anchor this, and it keeps track of that volume. Okay, and let's go through this in a little bit more detail, but oh, no, there you go. Anchored VWAP. It's not AVWAP. You got to type in anchored volume weighted average price. And let's just get a thicker line in here. I'll go ahead and leave the upper and lower bands here for now. We'll just pull this into like a 4 so we can see it pretty clearly. But that's the AV-WAP. Since when? Well, it's since the beginning of whatever time frame we're looking at. Now, this may or may not make sense. What does make sense is if you anchor it around a given turning point. For example, let me show you this. Notice this was kind of the last low right there. This point, okay, this point right here was the last low before we really took off. So where is the volume weighted average price at that point? Look down here. I right clicked on it. This is how you set the anchored VWAP on the chart. We don't have to build a study indicator. It's built in. But this is a cool feature so you don't have to go in and otherwise you'd be doing this. Go in, click, and set up your date in here. Type it up, make sure it's correct, blah, blah, blah. When you know it's correct, when you point to it, right click, that's on a PC or a Mac, really. You need either one. Set it to this date. Boom. Where are we at right now? We're right at the anchored VWAP. Okay. Now, sort of in simple terms, breaking above, when price breaks above the VWAP, folks, it just indicates a stronger shift in demand. Buyers are willing to pay prices that are above the average price paid since the VWAP calculation began. That's right there. This can suggest increasing bullish momentum. Okay. When you can get back above it. Now, it can also represent support. Now, this occurs, and how is it calculated? Well, volume is a key element here. Now we've taken that VWAP that we were just getting on an intraday chart with those calculations, and now we've expanded it to the daily chart and showed just an awesome quick tool over here. Now we do have expansion levels up or below, specifically on the bounce area here. This is basically showing, that a bounce off the VWAP could like literally show the average price is acting as support. The strong breakout, buyers are regaining control. It's combining that volume, averaging it in since a key turning point, highs or lows on the chart, could be an interesting point, and it's setting it from that range. Another one that's interesting right here. If this is a giant flag, and you're tracking something like a Cisco, right? If you think it is, because let's just say we do what were we just looking at on the S&P 500. This is an S&P 500 stock. It's also a NASDAQ 100 stock. Well, we had a big upward move, and we had this triangle on the S&P that's sitting up here, right? Just above some highs. Okay. And what we're saying is what if we start to take out a range here? It's a very fascinating volume plus price clue. Stronger shift in demand is what we're saying. Higher volume trades could really do something like that, and it could push us up higher, as we're focusing on this area here. So I'm looking at the pullback. What about this range here? Simple. Right click. Let's just see where the anchored VWAP stands right now. If we add up all those volumes, there it is right there. That is a level that could if you start to break out that, and we've got some time before we get there, there's no doubt about it. But if we get above this level, now you're getting all of this volume. What's the average of this volume relative to price? And is the demand starting to be strong enough to take it out? In other words, what about a hold above this level? Great stuff. Great stuff just with the drawing tool alone. Now, we're going beyond the drawing tool today, but I wanted to bring this up. But if you got a hold over here, it could be interesting. Notice one key point. Look at this right here. Let's stick with the yellow, easier to see. And all right, so right there, resistance, 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 resistance. Oh, a little bit of a fake. But what was the very next day? Did we even hold for one day? Was there any level of confirmation here? No, no, there was not. We got to say there was not any confirmation. Right here, okay, breaking, breaking, breaking. We're even below the lower channel here, but this is an interesting point. One of the first indications is, look at this too. Support, 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 support. Wow. This is traditionally a gap like this oftentimes can represent support because that was a killer gap. Obviously, somebody, and obviously some buddies, more than one, plural, thought this to be an interesting move. I mean, well, excuse me, on earnings. So the market appreciated it. It was a big run. We're in this range. If we start to get up above here, a trader's saying, I want a little bit more. They're waiting for that anchored VWAP, a cool way to take a look at it. Now, can we scan for this? 100%. The problem is this, it represents itself as an issue, just a little bit of an issue, but it's one that could be dealt with too. If we find, if we're running a scan and we're looking for an area where there tends to be, I mean, we can do it individually. I just showed you how to do that, and that could be really cool too on any stock that you thought had an interesting price pattern, whatever it is you're looking for. You think that there might be potential trajectory going higher, got some great ways to anchor that and just find it just like that, right on Thinkorswim, but with a quick right click. But the other thing is too, is if we were running a scan, how do we run? This is what the first thing you got to kind of consider. How do we run a scan? Because we have to put in a date. You need a date to anchor it off of. What date do we use? If we're running a scan, we have a number of different stocks bouncing off different levels. That represents or presents the first problem, potential problem to consider, or an issue, right? We've got to deal with that. Now, one way to deal with it is what? Well, NDX, NASDAQ 100, is mainly technology stocks. And we're looking at a technology company here in Cisco. Okay, we've got a technology stock. Sometimes, not every time, but you might find bigger bounces that occur right around a key level. Notice this. This is Cisco. And I love doing this on the fly because it is so interesting, but it helps to prove the concept. Here's Cisco. What was the last level I just used in here? Well, it was dang close to the end of the month right there, wasn't it? The low itself was right around the 30th, 31st. I could have used that level too to anchor off the bottom, right? If I wanted to get an anchored VWAP off the bottom. But notice it bounced there. But a move like this, do you think that maybe we had a number of technology stocks maybe bouncing off the bottom too? If you said yes, well, you were right. Because look at this. See that key point right there? This is really, really nice and really, really helpful to have on two fronts. Two fronts. The bottom, where we were just looking at, right there. End of March. That's the NASDAQ. We have a lot of technology stocks in there. It appears that, yeah, there was a big move on a number of companies that may have started here because that's what created that run in the first place, right? That's what got us going up. So for our anchored VWAP level, we could set it on this date or just towards the end, 30th, 31st, within a bar. Great. It's not even going to matter really as we look at this, but we're using the index now to give us an interesting way to scan the other one. That was the first one I mentioned. Now, the second one is this right over here. What do we look at Cisco? When did this consolidation really begin? This, I think, is a fascinating one too to consider. It's incredibly interesting because now we can look at the pullback, and there's a number of variations in here. What did we call this one earlier? The wedge, not the wedgie, the wedge, the triangle, the pennant, the consolidation, the coiling up. There's a lot of different variations here, but that's the pullback. And what did we get? What are we after here for the scan? It's the pullback date or the bounce up date. Either one can be interesting, right, to look at. One other consideration that could be, I think, helpful to put into a scan that we did incorporate. You can throw it out if you don't want to. You can change it too if you wanted to. But what about just the confirmation of the trend? Because we do have some that went like this. They came on down, 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 down. Okay, and then they broke. But are they above, let's say, for example, a very interesting moving average? How about a 50-day moving average, the 50 DMA day moving average? How about that? Absolutely. Why not? On the date that it breaks back up above and we see that extreme demand, taking out the average of volume, taking out the average of price on the AVWAP, What about a simple moving average to take it out? I already have a 50 built in. Right there. Okay, got it in green. There we go. Let's actually, we've got green and red on the charts. Let's go to a blue, sort of a neutral color. We'll go like this so we can see it. But what about above the 50? Let's make sure we're lighting it up. Okay, there we go. Boom, boom. What about the 50 as well when we get the anchored VWAP? Now, folks, that does stand to reason too. You can use a 50, you can use a 200 for those companies that have pulled back a little ways. But when we're getting the anchored VWAP signal, in other words, we're going to create a scan here that simply breaks above a level when it breaks above the average VWAP range. And then what we'll do is we will make sure it's above the 50-day moving average if you want to. This is another case in point. This is the one we were just talking about with Cisco. It didn't show up on the NDX, did it? I wanted to highlight that as the date that we could consider because these dates are very, very much the same for a lot of tech stocks and even stocks that are not tech related. Industrial stocks too had a similar run. Defense type stocks, biotech stocks had a big run. Some of them did around these dates. But NDX did not have volume, and that's exactly why our anchored VWAP line did not show up. You got to have a volume component, otherwise it won't even bother. You won't even see it. It's not even there without the volume. But let's just explore this before we go into the scan here, right here. Do you think we'd want it above the 50 again when you're getting the signal? Probably. You probably don't want it below the 50. Uh, Maybe it's still above the 100 or the 200 on a longer term move, but maybe not specifically on a trade like this. If I come over here too, you'll note that that consolidation, these ranges are coming together. And by the way, there can be a history of a stock. I chose the 50 because a lot of times these longer term patterns will tend to consolidate right here around a 50. Ah, around a 50, and we bounced here. But if you break out again, you might have just come down, bounced off it, and ready to go too. So you might be getting multiple signals here too. Whatever the case is, we're just using that as a potential entry point. Now, one of the interesting things is that on the VWAP, whatever one we're looking at, we can look at Cisco, we can look at anything. In fact, I'm just going to pull up, how about NVIDIA, the stock that's been sideways for a long, long time. But one of the things to note, because you got this over here, and in fact, I knew we would. I'm going to take out the 50 for now. We got too many blue lines. But I'm just saying that it's helpful with the trend. But here is NVIDIA. Now, one of the things I wanted to note is that where it becomes interesting is that you are below the line for a little bit before you begin to take it out. Now, we don't know if this will act as support. It's showing that it was below it for a while, acted as resistance, and we just got above it here. Now, obviously, you're going to have to get more follow through and maybe a stronger sort of trajectory, a stronger angle of the move to bring us higher. Like, I mean, this was kind of strong. This is kind of, not nearly the angle, a lot lower grade in terms of that angle. But, it's comes down to the point where you want to see it pull back over here and you're looking for a fresh breakout. In other words, all I'm getting at, whether it be Cisco, whether it be a number of different tech stocks out there, we've got somewhat of a pullback. We're above the 50, so price greater than the 50 MA moving average. Okay, we're above that level, broken higher. But also within that, you know, we've pulled back and now we're ready maybe to extend the trend higher because the demand is starting to peak according to the uh, anchored VWAP. Okay, now I think I said it all. So now it's time for us to get into our scan, but I'm going to just take a look at some questions coming in here. Looks like we're basically caught up. Let's see. Cam got the Trader Joe question. The lower and upper bands operate as potential support and resistance. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And you can see that. We kind of mentioned that on the earlier one. I don't know if you caught that. You might have just been coming in here, Deepak, but it's a great point to bring up that you're bringing up here. They can represent support or resistance on the upper channel. That's true. Um, That's right. And remember, this AVWAP line will rise when you're having a couple of things going on, right? You're having volume come in. It's a combination of volume and that price, volume weighted average price. All right, well, let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the scan right there. And there it is, the AVWAP breakout. It's kind of a, where the breakout is triggered. I ran it on the S&P 500 on that date. Now it's a little bit more geared, I would say, to the NASDAQ because it's a smaller group of companies. I'm just going to throw out a couple of these real quick. We'll show them and we'll go from there. But like, for example, if I wanted to look at, what do we have? So this is just as of today. And I haven't got a look back period in there, but I can certainly build one. Let me just show it to you real quick. It's so basic. This is such a basic one. This one I just took right from basically the code itself. I've got a couple of different indicators here. You can see it's got a minimum bars of 3. And what does this mean? This, folks, is below the VWAP. Now, I have anchored it, by the way, to that date. It was actually March 30th. So off the major bottoms on the indices. And then we're saying prices here in yellow have gone down below uh, at least 3 bars, but up to 10. So there's a range in here. Not too long because we're probably not looking at a downward trend, but then you're also looking at a moving average as well. This is all just taken right from the indicator. A lot of it, all I did was simply put in the code in terms of what to scan for. Now, I can build a look back period, no problem. We can do that. We can go back over 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, whatever the case might be. That's not hard to do. We can do that, but we're just looking at right now as of today. I'm looking for fresh breakouts. Okay. So a fresh breakout, and there we go. Let me go, and just a quick note on this. Think scripts aren't guaranteed for timeliness or accuracy. Let's just pull this up right now. I'll share this into the chat box with you. So AVWAP scan. Yeah, there's the scan right there. All right. All right. And let me know if you don't know how to plug this in. Sometimes people that are new to the class, we lose them, and everybody's at that stage at one point in time. So just let me know in case you need to know the steps to get this put into the scan. But let's go through and take a look at this and show you what's exactly going on. Tapestry right off the bottom, TPR, TPR. Now you'll notice I'm going to extend this over to that date. And by the way, these dates are a little different. This is interesting because this was actually the high, not the low, but it was actually the high of the move, right around there. So I'm going to put it on. That was, oh, I'm sorry, to the end of March. So this is the low right here. This would be an interesting one too, though I have to state. But if we wanted to go over here, look at this. Right click right where that date is. This is what we're scanning for right there. Do you see it break above? Was it down 3 to 10 days right there? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it sure was. It was down 3 to 10 days. Below, it's above the 50 period moving average, just so you know. It is above the 50 period moving average as well. We don't have it listed here on the chart, but we're just now beginning to get the break. Now, do you see anything interesting here? What do you see here on this chart that could be of interest, and it could be time-wise an interest? Anything here? There might be one thing that sticks out. Well, maybe two on a stock like this. Oh, how do I change the date, Deepak? You just right click on it. Oh, in the scan? On the chart, you just right click and go down and set the date. Click right there, and it lines up to that date. On the scan itself, if that was the question you were asking, I'll just answer that too. You can change that right there. You have to change the date. Year, month, day is how that lists right there. But we're using major market turning points in order to scan through those. All right. See anything interesting there? It's kind of tricky. It is because we've got 3 lines sitting on in the middle there. By the way, interesting, huh? Look at that. Off the bottom, off the top, right there. This is what I was referring to. First of all, strong upward move. Next, you might see something here. You might see something here, and you might see something here. What's nice about price patterns on the shoulder, head, shoulder with the inverted there. Okay, the inverted head and shoulder is you do get a target on these two. The target would be the extension over here. I'll just line this up here because we like to pull in everything in this class, right? We don't want to forget what we've learned, but there is kind of, a break above that. Well, there is the break above that range. Here's your high. I copy it, activate, and I drag it over here. If we break, well, that might be the target up top. You see that? Shoulder, head, shoulder. It also looks like it could be the target for the longer term flag pattern. Oh yeah, those are lining up pretty well over here, price to price. So again, a pattern within a pattern may be coming up to a particular level. Interesting to see, right? So we're getting an interesting indication here of a turning point. Now, some traders might want to wait, but there is your VWAP turn. All right, folks, do me a favor. If you are getting any value from this discussion, you got to get value from it. But if you are, smash that like button. It lets us know that this presentation is of value to you. Be sure to subscribe as well to our Trader Talks channel. Love to have you subscribe. And I'm just going to see how many subscribers we have. I know it's been growing, but just wanted to do a quick check on it as well. Did we get? Yeah, we did. We did. We got up to the 106 level right there. Excuse me, 206. Just off by 100,000 there. 206,000. Love to have you subscribe. I'll put this into the chat box, the chat for you to take a look at or to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And be sure to follow us on X as well. Cameron May CS, Mike Fairborn CS. We do have additional content in here for you to check out. I'll just go ahead and put this into the chat as well. There you go. All right, we got a thumbs up for JV Texan. Perfect. All right, so let's do this. Thank you, sir. And let's do this. Or thank you, ma'am. Let's go over here and let's look at those others. Besides that, we're going to run through. Now, you guys did get the scan, right? You pulled it up. No questions on how to do that. Think you got it all. All right, in the scan, yes. Anchored VWAP, similar to the Keltner channels. It is, no, it's a little different. It's different, yeah, because it's looking at volume. The volume component is the key there, with the Keltner channels. Um, what you're really looking at, well, moving averages for sure. That's getting into, Bollinger Band's a little different too, but it's definitely getting into that range. Okay, so what else do we have here? Well, we've got some others. We did have Honeywell in that group. We'll run it on the NASDAQ 100 too here. There you go. Okay. Oh, I'm seeing it again here too. I don't know if we're going to see a larger move. These longer term weekly patterns are fascinating. And it's interesting with the tech pullback, particularly with some of these. This is another shoulder, head, head. It's a double-headed monster here in terms of an inverted, but then you see it again right there. This could represent actually quite a large pullback, quite a large move if it were to break out. Fascinating how we held right there too. But you see kind of the measured move distance, low to high. Interesting. It's pulling these out in the S&P 500 at a particular level. Now, where else might I want to measure this one at? You notice that tapestry and this one are interesting around these highs. This group does better. So you could formulate it around a given sector too. Now, we do have ETFs on sectors, although we don't discuss them in this class, but you could look at an indication of where the sectors might be moving. Look at that. You're not quite there yet. You're very, very close. That's kind of your initial move once I've anchored it to this level, as opposed to where the scan was at. But you can do this within all your stocks within your own portfolio here, and it could be quite enlightening. Now let's go ahead and just do a couple more before we do the other one. RGN, let's see, REGN was one that was in there. Look at that, right there. Anchored to the end of March, which is an interesting high here. Fascinating. You're right there. You're also above the 50-period moving average because it won't scan otherwise. Look at that. I'm going to move it to the highest one right here since I've got an interesting initial indication off of a high point. But what about here? A little bit more to go. A little bit more to go from the high. Now, could we do a low over here? Immediately. This is so great because we're calculating that volume Look at that. They reach basically the same point, which is right around that big round number, 700. 700 off the high and the low. Short term, we're actually showing some signs. You can see right there, maybe a little bit of a lift. By the way, be mindful of earnings. Last one in this group, well, at least I'll hit four. Mondelez was in there. Look at Mondelez at the anchored point. Now, this is anchored here. I'm going to anchor it where it showed it at. There you go. And what about this low right there? Could be very interesting. So there are ways to scan it. Now let's get into the more relevant scan. This almost lines up the same as the other one. You're just barely getting above that level. You see anything here of interest? Well, if there's a rotation in the market, yeah, this could be interesting because this is more like a consumer staple stock, right? Oreos, etc., and Mondelez. Here's your move. Come down here, kind of a higher low. Will this group run? Well, interesting. Earnings might play a key role here. We know that NDX is moving a little bit down. It's down almost 600 now in that consolidation range. So we'll see what happens with the NASDAQ 100 as we look at it here. But let's do this. Let's gear this now towards the scan in of maybe a larger group of companies that are just going to be tied in more closely. I think this is where the scan could be helpful. The great thing is you can change it. But let's go down to it. Where are you? Very top right there. Okay, so there's the NASDAQ 100. This is anchored off that end of March lows as we pull this up. Now we only have 30. Wow, these are all the same ones in the NASDAQ. Okay, so it is interesting to kind of check this out and see, but these are also firing off at this point. Now, folks, remember, we can change this. Um, we can alter it and we can get some interesting sort of ideas in here in terms of where we're looking. Let's pull up some over here. Like for example, I think this could be interesting too. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to look at the charts very, very closely here. Um, all right, MU. So off this low, not as much, but there's your end of March. Big kind of big mover in the market uh, has been Micron for sure. But if we come over here and look at this, what do we want to look at here? Well, you can see up top that might be a key support level, and sometimes it can hold, just like we saw, some of the resistance levels up top or below support right there. So this is suggesting that we might actually come back down a little bit, but this could be a very interesting level, on two fronts right here too. Look at this right here and the VWAP, of course. So maybe just a little bit more to go. Let me just make an adjustment here, folks, before we're done. Let's go into maybe the code right now so we can like maybe take a look at some of this right here. I think it would be helpful for us if we did have maybe a look back period. So let's go ahead and just input a look back period in here as well. We could just say look back bars, and we'll just go ahead and make it. We can put whatever we want, but oftentimes what we've done here is we've done something like a 3. Is we've done, oh, get that off there. Okay, so we got a look back bar of a 3 in here. And what I want to do is set this up. Uh, so it's part of our, let's see, we got to do the plot scan in here too. So we've got to plot this out. I think we have enough time to get this done. Let's see here. We could do a class 2 on just the code itself if we need to, and come in here and go through some of these, but you got to look back bars right in there. We're going to be tapping into that. Now we've got to look back at a certain time frame. So we're going to be going greater than here, 0. That's always going to be our case. Let's just make sure. Yeah, we got the 0. Uh, we've done a few of these and AVWAP. We've got to close above greater than the moving average as well. Uh, okay. Oh, I didn't put the reclaim in up top here. All right, let me work on this, folks. I'll get going on it, and let me have. What I'll do is I'll have this. So we have a look back bars. We'll have it set back here in just a sec. And Oh, I've done the plot. I know I did wrong already. Okay. Well, I've got to define a couple of things in terms of the reclaim. I was thinking about this earlier, but I'm just going to bag it. What we'll do is I'll jump into this. I'll have it pulled up here for us just momentarily. But yeah, I'll have it up just right after we're done getting this posted, okay? But at least in the meantime, we have this here. And what we could do is utilize this around different time frames. Now, be sure, of course, to use this around any time frame you want, but I want to just quickly on the last little note here, the NDX, what do we have on the pullbacks? Okay, it's only going to be as of today, but about 6.3, as you can see over here is where we want to be looking at this. So I'm just going to quickly go into the scan over here. And what I want to do is jump in to the scan, and I'm going to do this. Uh, we'll go ahead and just adjust this to 6.3. Okay. And so we're going off the top instead of off the bottom here. And do we have anything as of today? So nothing today. That's where that look back period is going to be so helpful. We've got to get that in there. I chose the S&P 500 initially because it was quite interesting. You're getting 11 off here, and it is similar on this as well. So I'm, marching off the top there. So there you go. So you've got yeah, right around the second or third. And how does this set up for these? One quick last one. Look at this. So Procter and Gamble's in there. We're getting a lot that really is not tech related. Let's see. Let's do PG. I want to do SWM as well. Excuse me, WSM right there. Now this is going to be off of the high in or the first part of June, which is actually this low. Interesting point here. You're getting that as well, breaking above prior highs. And then lastly, these don't really anchor with that low point though. So we'll be looking at a look back period here for sure. But this one is right towards the end of June, and you can see us kind of in a consolidation range here. Interesting, we're just getting a lot of potential inverted head and shoulders patterns in here, perhaps. But I'm certainly seeing this wide range. You can see that I actually have a line in here to notify me too, on a break. But looking over here at the top, perhaps if it were to break above here, yeah, it's interesting. It kind of gives me a sense that maybe some of the consumer staples might be in a position to possibly start breaking out of their range too, because what we're actually seeing is we're seeing that higher demand, in other words, in terms of volume, because volume will influence the anchored VWAP level along with price, but you're going to have to get combinations of the two to take a look at that. Now, I did mention that alert in there. I think it's interesting to put alerts up, particularly in price patterns as well. But just because I did bring up that alert, I wanted to note alerts aren't guaranteed to be delivered or delivered at any specific speed or time frame, should not be used as a replacement for actually being aware of your positions. Quick note, alerts have been working for me great, but hey, we wanted to state that just in case something happens. But there you go. You can have those alerts text you, etc. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you found this informative and useful. I will post that look back here just a bit, but be sure to take a look at that underneath the description section where I put everything, all the code as well. So we'll jump into that in just a second, but we'll have that up there for you. But it was great to be here with you all. Folks, have a great rest of the day. We'll continue to expand on some of these ideas, particularly where, a couple of components are involved there. Price, in today's case, price and volume on a daily chart, not just intraday, but measuring it over time. So hopefully informative and useful for you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Scam, for helping out in the chat. See y'all next time. Bye-bye.